Hello and welcome back. So we already choose the protocol that we want to use for our patient, and at this stage we're going to explain how we're going to do the follow-up. So when I say follow-up, it's basically doing ultrasound for folliculometry and assessment of endometrial thickness sometimes. And in addition, we do some lab work, basically estradiol, and we have progesterone in certain situations as well. So, for example, this is a chart for our medications. Now we're going to do the follow-up. So the follow-up in ultrasound is going to be looking like this. So as we said before, 1 to 28, this refers to the day. And actually we have another axis which includes the measurements of the follicles starting from 11 millimeter and going down to 25 millimeters. We have C, which stands for cyst. So if you see a cyst, which is probably an important finding, then you have to write like the size of this cyst. The other thing is you can add endometrial thickness in this row actually. So as you see, we probably just do different colors to just help you to identify the range where we're still growing and the range where you expect triggering to happen and the range where you exceed the typical limit for triggering, and this is the point that you don't want to wait for a long time. So what you need to do is actually go for the day. You do the ultrasound. For example, you're doing it at day 6, and you choose the size of the follicle or that you found. So for example, okay, I found 2 follicles that measure 13 millimeters. So just double click here and just 2, then it's going to add 2 to this box. So you know that at day 6 you find 2 follicles that measure 13 millimeters. You can always add more for sure. So I found like okay, 3 that were 16 millimeters or whatever, and you can keep doing it. So it's like this. You just choose whatever measurements you found and just tell the machine how many follicles you found of that particular size. So you can keep doing it all the time. Just double click, enter the number. You can do it all over the chart, going day by day. So by doing this, you can see actually with this sharp line between different levels of measurement, you can tell how the growth of the follicles were going, starting from the early days of the cycle, going forward toward the end of the cycle, or the middle of the cycle basically. So that's one way, and you can always add the endometrial thickness here, like double click and say, okay, endometrial thickness was like 9 millimeters at that time. And you can always say, okay, you can leave it empty or just say that was like 0 cysts that you found at that day. Similar to what we said before, you can click here so you actually export the whole chart as an image into the patient summary, which we're going to show you in a different video. Or you can click here where you can add a reminder of the folliculometry to the calendar, the whole calendar of the center that you're managing, or and in addition it's going to be added to the calendar of this particular patient. So every time you add something, it's going to be added to the calendar of the center and the calendar of the patient as well. And as we said before, it's going to be a different video, but I want to just highlight that you can always add something related to the ultrasound follow-up by clicking here. So you can add it as a reminder for you to do it on a particular day. And this is another button that can give you some information about how you can do your follow-up, some sort of recommendations that can help you during the follow-up of your patient. Similarly, you can click here and this will show you the hormonal follow-up for your patient. So if you're doing E is estradiol, P is for progesterone, so you can always add any follow-up that you do by just double clicking and adding the number that you found, or you just click on it once and write whatever number you found, basically. Always remember that sometimes you find one of these boxes kind of highlighted in red, which means that you need to do an assessment at this particular day based on the protocol that you already chose from previously. So for example, let's go back. So we choose this protocol, and this protocol tells us that you need to check your estradiol at day 1. Why? Because if you go back, you'll find that the doses were not determined from day 1 onwards. That's because you need to check the estradiol first and then decide what dose should be given for the rest of the cycle. So what you do here is actually double click, enter the number. So say I found it was like 600, wherever, and then you just add. As you see, 600, it turns into green, which means that this measurement is good. And then if you go back to the medications, okay, now it tells you what dose need to be given at this particular time. So again, you can keep doing estradiol at different days, and of course if you choose one of the stimulation protocol, we haven't done that here, but if you use one of the stimulation protocols, it's gonna give you more of these pinky boxes to ask you for more estradiol to be measured, to help you know what the dose or what dose you need to give to your patients and the stimulation cycle. This is an additional box that you can fill if you would like, which actually gives you the baseline labs. So these are baseline labs and these are additional labs. These are kind of basic labs that you do for women with fertility issues. So FSH is basically the ovarian reserve. So FSH, AMH, and of course I'm gonna add atrial follicular count here. And some additional labs that you may or may not be doing is like LH, TSH, prolactin, and you can always add comments if you want to remind yourself of something. So how to do that? Just click here, edit, and then choose whatever lab you want to add, and just choose the number, determine what cycle day this lab was done or this test was done, and you can choose a cycle day and choose a date when this test was basically done, and then click here, and then it's going to be added to the baseline labs for the patient. Similarly, you can do the same thing here and add more labs to the patient chart. So that's pretty it. This is how you can add your labs and add folliculometry to the measurements. Always remember that in the ultrasound, in certain protocols, particularly the frozen embryo transfer protocols, you may be asked to measure endometrial thickness at particular days, and you're gonna find it turning pinky as well. And in this case, you're gonna double click, enter the number of endometrial thickness measurement, and it's gonna give you the recommendation of what to do. If it's good, if it's bad, you have to do something or not. This is if you choose one of the protocols that are under frozen cycle, if you choose one of the protocols that are already in this software. Again, in hormonal profile, you can again export the chart for the lab results. You can export that into the patient summary, and you can click here to add a reminder to your calendar about one of these labs if you want, and you can always click here to get more information on how to do the follow-up for an IVF cycle. And that's pretty it for now, and see you in the next video.